Something I've been seeing a lot on social media recently in the spiritual world and healing space are a lot of people talking about or promoting killing the ego. And why I want to talk about this is because I'm noticing that people are talking about killing the ego and implying that once you do that, you can remove the ego from the container of our mind so we're no longer affected by it negatively. But what I want to explain is one, that's impossible to do. We can't do that. And in fact, we actually really need our ego. Our ego creates our identities create our personalities create our personal realities. And so while the ego can create identities that are no longer serving us, that are no longer beneficial to who we are becoming in our present moment in life, it also creates positive identities that are powerful and beneficial for our evolution as a human in this human experience. And so what I want to talk about is kind of what we're truly doing when we kill the ego and how to do that more efficiently, and then talk about some identities that my own ego created that I dismantled and that has really allowed me to experience mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical transformation. So when we're talking about killing the ego, what we're truly meaning is bringing a death to an idea about ourselves. So because the ego has created identities, what we're trying to do is remove the attachment to the identity that the ego has created. Once we are able to remove the attachment, then we're no longer going to be affected by the ego, because the attachment to the identity is where the belief is. And if we believe this identity to be who we are in life, then that's who we're going to be, and that's how we're going to live our life. And so the way we do this is, number one, we have to figure out what our identities are that the ego has created, and then we have to get to the root part of our past to as why that identity was even created in the first place. Because typically a lot of identities that are no longer serving us come from past childhood traumatic situations or past childhood circumstances and experiences that were very negative to us or anything like that. Now, it's not always traumatic, it's not always negative. Sometimes we just outgrow a version of ourselves that may have been positive for a while, but now it's time to kind of release that attachment to that identity to allow new identities to come in that are more powerful and beneficial to us. So once we get to that root cause, that root area of our past, whether it's the memory, experience, or life circumstance that we went through, then we are able to really start the removal of the attachment process. But it's not easy. And the thing about the ego is it's going to do everything it can to fight and keep that identity alive. Because a lot of times that identity has been who we are for such a long time. And when we start to get ourselves out of our comfort zone and go into a new uncomfortable version of ourselves, it wants to stay with what is comfortable, what feels familiar. And so when we get to the why and everything, then what we do to really help loosen the power and loosen the grip of the attachment to the identity is bring a whole lot of love, compassion, understanding, acceptance, and patience, and even forgiveness to that area of our life. Because we want to bring love to these old versions of ourselves. We want to bring a whole lot of compassion for the whole situation of why that identity was created, and really bring so much acceptance to it that we no longer see this as a negative part of our life, but we see it as a beautiful part of our story of this human experience, because it shapes us who we are becoming today, so that these new, more powerful identities can really help with that evolution. And so we typically need to bring a lot of forgiveness too, especially in traumatic or wounding situations or circumstances, because it's ultimately what allows us to be able to release more. And so if we can bring forgiveness to ourselves and to whoever was involved in that part of our past as to why that identity was created, that again, that attachment's just going to lose its strength. It's going to lose its grip on us. Now, again, like I've said, the ego is going to fight to keep that alive. So life is going to kind of present us with these experiences or circumstances to kind of reveal a trigger within us that's going to want to activate that old identity. It's going to want to activate the old habits and limiting beliefs and false narratives and constructs again, so it stays alive. And one thing that really, really helped me to be able to step out of my comfort zone and get into this newer, more uncomfortable zone that's going to be more powerful for myself was this quote that I heard. And it said, "Would I rather live in an comfortable, familiar hell, or would I rather live in an uncomfortable and unfamiliar heaven?" So hell being our past identities, heaven being our new, more powerful identities. And when I really began to embody that question and really began to let it sink in more and allow myself to really move into what was uncomfortable and unfamiliar, but understand this is my new heaven right here, I was able to really detach more and more from those old identities. And so it's not easy. It takes a lot of work. It may take less work and may take less time for others, which is great, but for most people who I know, who I've worked with, and even myself, and from other people that I follow on Instagram, from all the gurus and stuff, they all had years and years of needing to practice and work on releasing and dismantling that attachment. And so I would love to go over some different identities in my own life that really affected me and how I was able to really begin the removal process, because truthfully, I'm still in the removal process of them. They just don't carry as much strength over me anymore. And so I've mentioned many times before that I grew up as a part of the childhood obesity epidemic. As a child, I carried a lot of fat on me, so I was an easy target for people to make fun of and bully and so on and so forth. And so much of what I was told as a very young kid, all the way through my, mid-20s even, was that I was fat or some variation of that, whether it was really cruel or just that simple. And so because this was ingrained in my psyche as such a young child, I really believed, oh, I am fat. I know I am Daniel, but I am also fat. So this is who I am, and this is just what I need to do and how I need to live my life. And so I really accepted that identity as who I was and a part of me. And it wasn't something I wanted, it wasn't something I liked, but it was my reality at that time. And so the way the ego was working for me, because all I wanted to do was feel accepted, I wanted to feel worthy, I wanted to feel enough, I wanted all the attention that all my other friends were getting from girls or teachers or coaches or whoever. And as I got older, to feel more accepted about who I was, which was I am Daniel and I am fat, I needed a new identity. I needed another identity to support this long-standing identity. And that new identity was the foodie identity, is what I call it. Because I would tell everyone, oh, I'm a foodie. And this foodie identity gave me justification as to the identity of I am fat. And the thought process my ego is creating for me was, oh, because I am a foodie, people will understand that. There will be more acceptance, there will be more worthiness, and this will help. However, it did not, and it was something that I lived by through my 20s, even close into my 30s as well. And I really just embodied these two identities. And it didn't come to my awareness until I started to go through my spiritual awakening and started to learn about the healing journey that we can go through to help with our mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical transformation. And so when I began doing the work, those were the two identities that I became aware of immediately, because they're the longest standing and oldest ones, essentially. And so I had to go to the areas of my past where they were created. So when I go to the I am fat, I go to the memories and any specific memories of being really ridiculed or bullied and all involved in it. And one, I brought, again, the love and compassion to myself and to the people involved. And I brought forgiveness to the people involved who were making fun of me. But also, I brought forgiveness to myself for just not knowing any better, didn't have the consciousness I have now. And I really accepted this identity, this past identity, as a beautiful part of my story, because this part of my story allows me to share this example with you and be able to help with people who can connect on this level. And because I brought forgiveness and everything there and was really able to weaken that attachment, the foodie identity attachment just kind of weakened and followed with it, because they were both based off of each other. The ego, again, was trying to protect myself, so it created this other one as well. And so I've been spending years to really dismantle this, but there's still a part of me that has like a slight attachment to that old version because it was nearly 30 years old. It's hard to break a 30-year-old habit like that. I'm sure any one of you can relate to that. And so through much work and different practices, from meditation, journaling, so on and so forth, I've been really able to weaken the attachment. And now the weight that the attachment was carrying over my mental and emotional ability to be a powerful version of myself has gotten lighter and lighter and lighter. And as those have gotten lighter and lighter and lighter, I myself have felt lighter and lighter and lighter. And as I feel lighter and lighter and lighter, my weight, my fat has all begun to release as I release the attachments. I'm still going through the process, but like I said, it's not carrying nearly as much strength as it used to before. So if you are someone who feels like you're still kind of stuck as a limited version of yourself, and you're maybe trying to figure out where these identities the ego created for yourself are and how to get to the root cause or anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Leave me a comment, shoot me a DM, and let's talk some more. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day. Bye-bye.